Well, so we just beat Bastion. We sat down and we did it all in one go without stopping whatsoever. Um, so with that being said, we had played the game a little bit before. I had gotten maybe through like the first two or three like quote unquote levels or worlds or whatever. And the way the game was structured is that there's the hub base of the Bastion itself, and you would need to go out to collect shards or fragments or whatever they were to be able to power up the Bastion. So you went through it once, and then you'd had to go through it again because something happens midway through the game, or at least a little bit, later game, that requires you to go and look for other level ups type deal, like other items to do so. So it was a pretty standard, straightforward, RPG. I'd say it's very linear, despite it being an awesome RPG type deal. It's like a very straightforward game with it's not an easy to follow story type deal, but it is an easier to follow story. Even if you don't know what's going on or whatever, you could at least go with, all right, this kid is just doing stuff with this Bastion. He's just restoring whatever this is. Even though you don't know or maybe understand the rest of the lore, I do believe it's there though. There is this instance in the game in which you take a drag from like a pipe and then fall asleep, and then you go into this dream state type deal, and it was like a wave horde mode type deal, and through it all, the narrator who narrates the entire game, this guy, from the first thing when you first wake up, it's like, well, this boy woke up type deal or whatever, right? And he just tells the main character's story the entire time, and you hear only his voice practically throughout the entire game, and it's wonderful. They picked a great voice actor who was very descriptive, distinct, had a lot of diction, and you could tell he enjoyed. You can tell he enjoyed playing the character that he played. All right, but I digress. What was I saying? I don't know. The gameplay was pretty solid. It wasn't like terrible. It wasn't like god. Oh no, hold on. I was talking about the lore. There you go. I was talking about the lore, and it's like that narrator was narrating this horde mode to begin with. You get what I'm saying? And there were other instances in the game where you could play other horde modes and then it would do the same thing. So I really like that about the game. I really like that the combat was simplified to like just one or two button presses with a trigger for special moves and then a trigger to block, dodging and then moving. It's very straightforward, very easy to play, very easy to get into. It doesn't mean it's an easy game. There are parts where it gets a lot more difficult and require not necessarily skill, but just knowing how to deal with those specific enemies or that enemy type. A lot of the enemy types in the game happen to have like smaller versions and then bigger versions of themselves, except for like, the ones at the end, and like very seldom other ones. But they have a very cartoony, but not too Pixar-y, but not too far off from that type deal. I wouldn't say Pixar because it was a lot more smaller and compact, and like a little less rounder, like way less rounder, I should say. It's very much its own game, very much its own thing. By the end of it all, there's a blatant reason for you to go back and play the game again, because there's two endings, like spoiler alert type deal, or at least I think there's two endings type deal, where there might be four even, where you can do something and then do one thing and then do something and then do another, or vice versa. You know what I'm saying? It's just it's pretty cool. So there's multiple playthroughs to be had, and it's not bad to go through, especially because they give you enough variety of weaponry. Even though there's not a ton, there's a good amount of variety in the game, short enough so that you aren't going through the same things and feeling bored with it all. Overall, it was a fun game. I wish the combat was a little less, just tap, 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 tap for like melee, but it sufficed. because the thing that is on, you know, point here, that the star of the entire game is the narration, is the story, is the character, as opposed to the gameplay. But the gameplay is also very solid. I'm never gonna rate games ever. I'm never gonna do anything like that. But I'm gonna go ahead and close this off by just saying it. If you have a few hours to kill, you know what I'm saying? And you want to place, like, let's say you're traveling and you have this on your phone, because I think they have this for, you know, mobile users type deal. Or if you're just have a rainy afternoon and want to get through a game that has a fairly decent story. I wish there were better developed characters, but I mean, the narrator's probably the best character type deal. Okay characters, besides the narrator, because the narrator is the best one. And I don't know, if you like RPGs and stuff, especially ones that are like, you know, smaller scale and easier to get through, like, it's for you. I would say play it if you like indie games and RPGs. It's definitely worthwhile. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and digress. I'm gonna stop talking about Bastion now. I'll highlight